Hey, Janelle.
There you go. This is better.
We're going, aren't we?
Wow.
Respect you and stay.
You're like
See.
way down
See,
there. You're
mira,
almost like
see?
Mexican lowrider low.
Mira.
Are we going?
Yeah,
Oh, we're
good.
going.
Yeah,
Wow, that was
we're
awesome.
ready.
Well, you guys can start in about a minute, so
Just 30 seconds.
keep letting people know. Let people know to jump in, tell their friends, hi to kids, how do what.
Yeah, jump on in. This is Brian and Janelle.
Overtime.
Overtime.
Yes. So share us. So
gotta
your
do this.
friends. Oh, sorry.
Brian and Janelle.
Overtime.
Time.
I don't know why we do that.
And jazz hands.
Invite your friends so they can join the discussion.
Yeah.
And as always, Brian didn't disappoint. The topic was nice and spicy today.
Yeah, real simple. No one's talking about this.
Yeah.
Abortion. So here's the scoop. We saw this article on the Washington Post, just to prove it to you. It's called The Widening Gap in Abortion Laws in This Country. And it showed this pretty map, which ultimately what it's doing is showing us how as more and more states like Alabama are rightfully in a biblical sense fighting for life. Because remember, Psalm 139 makes it very clear that we were known before we were in our mother's womb, but certainly known at the moment of conception, as indicated in Psalm 139. So life is something we value around here. Get that out of the way right away.
Oh, yeah.
So this map shows you the purple colors are states where they're getting more and more loose in their abortion restrictions, allowing more and more abortion at any phase, for any reason. And the states that are the lighter colors are moving more and more, like the orangey colors are more and more towards protecting life. So the more that abortion is at risk of being overturned, Roe v. Wade, the more we have other states pressing away. So the article is essentially the widening gap in abortion laws in this country. And our question is, of course, since we often unwittingly conflate changing laws with changing hearts, we want to figure out how to actually change hearts, because laws don't change hearts.
Right.
Case in point, Civil Rights Act of 1964 did nothing to end racism in our hearts.
Right.
It ended racism in our society as a legally allowable thing. So how do we change hearts? We have our own ideas, but we want to hear from you on this, on how do we actually change people's hearts about abortion? How do we look today? Ooh, we look good.
Yeah, Joy. Good morning, Joy.
Hey, Joy.
Hi. Joy says, hey, Brian, Janelle, and Ron, watching this great conversation at Pregnancy Solutions with Brett.
Oh, Brett's there.
That's cool. Yeah, Brett, and it was encouraging to see Darcy.
Yeah.
She also volunteers at Pregnancy Solutions in Akron, and great to hear her service there. Sarah, hi, Sarah. Thank you for joining us. Sarah says, thank you for opening discussions on hard topics. I so appreciate the tone you guys set when you have these conversations. Also, yesterday's best of was excellent. Appreciate every minute. Thank you for joining us. Quantaya, good morning, Quantaya.
Hey there.
In terms of the tone, it was just affirming to hear from Brett, who works with Pregnancy Solutions in Akron, when he said a lot of these women that are considering abortion are sitting right next to you in church. And
That's
it's
right.
just the importance of watching how we talk about these issues, because you never know who's listening.
That's right. And now we had a number of ideas shared, but I promised I would share my 4 ideas.
Yeah.
So we got Ron's got his smartphone. Did that work out for you? You and I are struggling again today with our cell phones, whatever. Okay, so here's my 4 ideas on how we can change hearts. Number 1, resist caricatures of the other side.
Right.
Yeah.
We heard today from Brett, who's watching right now,
Right.
Yeah.
and others that far too often we create this caricature of the pro-choice person that is this. It's the fangs and the venom dripping, and they can't wait to dismember a baby.
Yeah.
When the reality is they're usually, as they indicated to us from this pregnancy center, that they're people that are hurting.
Yeah.
That some of them are Christians. They have nowhere to go. They don't know what to do. They don't even know it's a life sometimes. And so the more we caricature the other side, the further away we're going to push their hearts from truth in this. The second idea would be, I think we could consider radical laws in another area. As we press towards these anti-abortion laws, these pro-life laws, why not propose as Christians a radical law to subsidize adoption? Right?
Oh, yeah.
Why not propose major incentives legally for choosing life?
Yeah.
Maybe we start advocating for protecting women who are vulnerable.
Right.
Maybe we start punishing negligent fathers.
Right.
that create situations where women are single with nowhere to go.
Right.
What if we offer, as a society, we press for free ultrasounds for anyone who would need it?
Mm-hmm.
What if we start pressing in those directions? Maybe those radical laws will show that we're more than just anti-abortion. We are actually pro-life.
And even maybe consider in terms of when you said about about the laws, sex ed, safe sex, and I know as Christians we want abstinence, but there's a lot of kids and adults that we're talking to in terms of sex ed that are not Christians, right? So we would rather safe sex than the killing of a baby.
Right.
I know that years ago they were saying abortion went down big time because the contraception discussion was increased, contraceptions and other things. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. It's a controversial one though, because
It is.
Christians we want abstinence-only education, but is that unintentionally creating ignorance?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it can.
I think it is too.
I mean, abstinence can still be the primary message, and it should be, because it is the only safe sex, is no
Yes,
sex.
absolutely.
The
And then you were going,
the third one, solution for us to change hearts on abortion is there common ground? Could we actually try to be people who seek out common ground on abortion? I know it sounds crazy to somebody who, like me, who hates abortion. It's disgusting. It's genocide. But what if we stop those caricatures and all of a sudden we ask things like, does the other side really like abortion? Or are they just trying to reduce unwanted pregnancy? What if we could work together to reduce unwanted pregnancy?
One of the things I'm trying to do is to actually stop and look at the memes and comments like that I get on my Facebook feed from people who are pro-choice, and actually try to be intellectually open and honest, look at it and see that does make sense. There are certain things that don't, but there are some things that do make sense. When they disagree with the heartbeat bill because it would mean ectopic pregnancies would be against the law,
Right.
which more than likely are going to result in the baby's death and the mother's death. That's not a good solution. That should be thought through, and they're right about that.
And conceding a point, as we've talked about before, Ron's so right, does not imply agreement.
Right.
It just implies empathy. And maybe we can create real discussion if we can find ways to concede points.
Yeah.
And find common ground.
Mark has a question. Thank you, Mark, for joining. He says, I see a narrative that men should have no say in this issue. How do we respond to that? Because we're also saying on the other side, a man should be a part of the discussion, period, about keeping the baby, supporting the baby, the support system. But when abortion is discussed, he's not a part of the equation. So what's your response to that?
Well, it's complicated. If I were trying to think from a perspective of those who would disagree with me and be pro-choice, they'd probably say it's not his business anyway, it's her body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see, so, I mean, I think it's obviously should be, he should have input because he's half the cause of the pregnancy.
Right.
But I'm not certain. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think pro-choice advocates would respond well to that?
I know a lot of times when a woman gets pregnant, typically out of wedlock, she will not give the father's name up, even though she may know it. She won't give that up. She wants to maintain all the legal rights and everything, and therefore she's not entitled to go after that man for the payments that he should be providing.
Yeah.
I don't know, in a pregnancy, maybe there could be a way where he is liable for the expenses that are being incurred if she'll identify him, but she's got to take that step.
And that's what I was talking about perhaps proposing some radical laws that would hold the father accountable.
Right.
We could actually force them into the discussion.
Right.
In a good way.
Right. Good morning, Mary. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Mary.
Jennifer says, I think one thing we have to do is love people before and after they have made that choice. I believe when we love people in the way Christ calls us, we can hopefully keep them from being in a position where they need to make a choice about abortion. Thank you for that point. Great point. Yeah, and I think if we hold men accountable more in terms of finances, etc., even as women individually, like you said, bringing up the name, etc., they can also engage more in the prevention part. You
Yeah.
know, because when they're not held as accountable, why do they have to care about, let's make sure
Yeah.
we don't put ourselves in that position to begin with?
The fourth idea I had I stole it from Brett from Pregnancy Solutions. Sorry, Brett.
Yeah.
It's the idea that we need to really first have a healthy view of sexuality before we can even necessarily have a credible voice on changing hearts on abortion.
Yeah.
And he's right. The best resource out there we can think of is Dr. Julie Slattery, and Rethinking Sexuality is a great book on that. But since that's the precursor to pregnancy,
Right.
we have to be better at talking about it in a healthy way as Christians about sexuality and how God's designed it. We need to make up for lost time when I think, were oppressive to people in the purity movement and created guilt and some issues with that. So that could be another way to discuss it.
Mark says, big shout out to Kelly for personally introducing me to the show that I didn't know existed until 2 years ago.
Come over here and say hi, Kelly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, hi, Marky Mark.
Yeah. Thanks for joining, Mark.
And the more Ron you bring, more Ron. You see what I did there?
Oh,
There it
yeah,
is.
yeah.
The more you bring up some of those ideas about laws and such and accountability, the more I have to ask questions like, pregnancy centers often will raise money and give out free ultrasounds. It's such a good resource. My question would be, if we really love the pro-life movement, would we be willing to pay in tax dollars the cost of providing free ultrasounds to anyone, anywhere who would want them? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right.
It's like we may have these big ideas, but are we willing to pay for it? Because oftentimes education costs money.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
So are we willing to put our money where our mouth is? If we want government involvement in this, which we clearly do,
Right.
are we willing to pay for it?
Joy says, Brett said, no problem. We stole it from Julie Slattery.
We're all stealing.
Yeah. And Brett mentioned Dr. Julie Slattery's book, Rethinking Sexuality. So for those who want to look into that. And it's a book you can share with women and men in your life that could benefit from it.
Another topic that's kind of related, we discussed a week or two ago, was if Christians will step up, and when there is someone pregnant in your church or in your circle of influence that you know, are you willing to support them financially and other ways if they choose to carry this child?
Right.
Sometimes their choice to have an abortion is based on their fear of, I can't do this, I can't afford it, I'll starve, the baby will starve, all of those things
Yeah.
running through their head.
Yeah.
If we step up and we say, don't worry about it, stay at my house, I'll keep you at the house till the baby's born, and 6 months or a year later, and who knows, you may fall in love with this little family within
Yeah.
your family and just bring them in.
That brings up a ministry I heard about and learned about through my church. The Micah 6-8 bus is like a trailer. They go around to like abortion places and they have the ultrasound. And if the woman decides to keep the baby, they support her financially for 2 years. So what a way for Christians to engage in a practical way. And hello to Lillian. She actually says, I'd rather pay for that in taxes than see it go to Planned Parenthood.
That's a great point. I think that's a great point because money is already going towards, and maybe we co-opt the phrase, women's health.
Right.
We could easily couch the idea of free ultrasounds and free health care for pregnant women across the board, across the country, no questions asked. We could couch that as women's health because it is women's health.
Yeah.
It is.
It's also baby's health, but it's women's health. And so therefore we suddenly become pro-women and pro-women's health.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That'd be expensive. And
Yeah.
I know a lot of
Absolutely.
people who are pro-life who are unwilling to pay any more taxes.
Right.
Do you see?
Mark says another good thing about pregnancy support centers is that they also help after the pregnancy. They did with our youngest with clothing and counseling. We mentioned the one in Akron. There's one in Cleveland Heights, Alternaterm. I used to volunteer there. They're awesome. And you're right, they do help with the pregnancy and the baby after, even with counseling and parenting classes. So there's great things out there.
Oasis of Hope in Medina and the Oaks Family Center in Brunswick.
Yeah.
And there's lots more.
Yeah.
But hey, that's about it for us for Brian and Janelle.
Overtime.
Would love to hear more of your ideas on this video feed, even if you pick up this live video this afternoon, this evening, tomorrow, I don't
Yeah.
know, next year. share your ideas on how we can truly change hearts on the issue of abortion, not just laws. Because remember, laws don't change hearts. And we're in the heart-changing business with God's help. So let's pray about this together and, Lord willing, see some hearts change.
Yeah, we have the article posted below, so make sure you read it, share it, and join us tomorrow, Brian and Janelle Overtime.
Overtime.